one of the things I want to say off rip, if you stick around to the end of the video, if you watch it from beginning to finish, this video is very valuable information. It's very important shit that can help you understand Honkai Star Rail's battle system on a more complex and intricate level. This is not to get you to retain my viewership, you know what I mean? It's not get you to retain the duration of my videos so I increase the algorithm. Now that will happen if you watch it from beginning to end, but I don't give a damn about that. I want you to literally learn how important speed and action value are and how prevalent they are in Honkai Star Rail. There's a lot of kids out there who don't really know what the hell they're talking about. They need to get in the back with Amber. And there's a lot of creators out there who don't know what the they're talking about, and they need to get in the back with Amber. The reason I say this is because if anybody is telling you to run a speed boot on a character without actually providing the context and the scenario and the battle that you're in, if they're just saying universally run speed boot, it's very telling that they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They don't know how speed actually works, because there's a lot of scenarios in the game where speed can be completely useless, a completely useless stat to put on your boots, depending on a number of variables, which I got a lot of math for you guys today that we're going to try and explain at the best of my capabilities so that you can understand what I'm saying. I'm not just talking out my ass. I'm one of these people that likes to provide all the work so that you see I'm not talking out my ass. Whereas a lot of people just say things and just expect you to take it, you know? So in today's video, hopefully you will have a pretty profound understanding, about 95% understanding of how speed and action value work and how important they are, and hopefully when you should put a speed boot on a character, because ideally you want to have attack percent and speed boot boots, because there are some scenarios where both can be beneficial. So let's go ahead and get into it. How does speed and action value work? Let's start off with action value. Action value equals 10,000 divided by your speed stat. Your speed stat is your base stat times any bonus percent speed stats you accrue plus a flat speed stat that you accrue. For an example, Sile, 115 base speed, pops her skill, gives her a 25% bonus speed boost, and then Asta pops her ult and gives a 40 flat speed boost. That's going to be 115 times the 25% speed boost plus Asta's flat speed boost, and that is going to be your speed stat, and your action value is going to be 10,000 divided by that. Now what I have here is just a simple speed stat so that you guys can just understand it on a baseline premises. So let's say we have 120 speed on a character. In order to ascertain their action value, you're going to do 10,000 divided by 120. That's going to give you 83 points. So you have an action value on that character of 83 points. Now, the order of the attack sequence is lowest action value to highest action value. So if I have 83 points and the other characters, or enemies and teammates alike, have 93 points, I'm going before all of them because I have the lower action value. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's go ahead and go on to the next slide here. How does action delay in advance work? So 25% advance. If you have, I don't know, whatever ability or perk that says advance your character by 25%. How that's going to work is your action value, which is 83, is going to be minus 83 times the 25% advance. That's going to give you 62 action value. So now you have a 62 action value instead of an 83. That is a literal example of 25% action advancement. Now, how does delay work? It's vice versa. 83 times 1.25 gives you 104 action value. Now, just right here, you could see how impactful it is to advance or delay. Depending on the way you go, look at the difference here in action value, and that is massive. Now, speed debuffs affect speed directly. So if you have a 10% speed debuff and you have 120 speed, you'll get debuffed by 120 times 0.1. Entangle equates to 25% delay, which is the quantum effect that happens when you break a enemy's shield that is susceptible to quantum. Weakness break, which is the shield break itself, is a 25% delay. So let's clear up the confusion here. Let's say your quantum character breaks somebody's shield. That's going to be a 25% delay from just breaking their shield, period. And then the entangle itself is going to delay their shield further. Now, finally, freeze equates to a 50% delay. Freeze delays people's turn by 50 freaking percent. So freeze is like super strong. By the way, Gepard Gepard is the only ice unit in the game that can freeze somebody without breaking their shield. His skill literally has a perk that can freeze people. Now it's an effect hit rate perk, which means you have to have a high effect hit rate, but you can freeze somebody and give them a 50% delay without even breaking their shield. So that's pretty broken. Now the only thing I didn't include on here is imprisonment, because I only seen Welt with imprisonment. I haven't seen anybody else with it. He's the only imaginary character in the game, and he actually has a actual percentage in his description that says how long imprisonment's going to delay that person. So I didn't need to include that because it literally states it in the description. Now, moving on to the next slide. How does action value work from turn to turn? Each turn you take action, that action value carries over to the next turn additively. I'll provide an example. Again, 83 action value, 5 turns. If nothing happens, no speed buffs, action advances, delays, it's just a generalized example, meaning you have a boring fight where you attack, I attack, you attack, I attack, nothing happens. Turn 1, 83. Turn 2, 83 times 2. Turn 5, 83 times 5. That's literally how it works. Turn 2, we double what our turn 1 and turn 2 action values are, which equates to 166. Turn 5, we add up every action value we've had from turn to turn, and it comes up to 415. Now, why is this important? Because there's going to be turns where the enemy, like Cocolia for an example, she can freeze you. There's going to be a turn where she freezes your ass, and that's a 50% delay. It's going to be 83 times 1.5 for that one turn, and that's going to add and accrue over to your overall action value. So it's important when you receive speed buffs for a specific turn sequence, or debuffs, or action advancements and delays. All of this plays a role, and don't worry about it. I have a very meticulous and definitive example coming up where I show how a sequence is going to play out depending on certain variables. But let's go ahead and go over to the next example. Your action value is pitted against enemy's action value over the course of battle. So what this means is, let's say turn 1, my action value is 83. In turn 1, the enemy's action value is 100. What's going to happen here is going to be 83 versus the 100. I have a lower action value, so it's going to be a 17-point difference, and I'm going to go first. Now, finally, turn 2 versus his turn 2, I have 166, he has 200. Now there's a deficit of 34 points. So what's going to happen here is this is going to continue to carry on until eventually you can see I go twice in turn 5. Why? Because I can go twice before it equates or goes over his total action value in turn 5. So if he has an action value of in turn 5 of 500 and I have an action value of 490 or 415, well, if I attack again, it's going to cost me another 83 action value, which means I'm only going to go to 498, which is still lower than his 5th attack. So I can now attack 6 times before he gets a chance to attack 5 times, which is how this game is designed to work. And again, it takes every single action value from every turn and then pits it against the other enemy. And guys, I'm not pulling this out my ass. I've tested this in the game for a number of days before I made this video because I had to make sure I was on my shit, obviously. Now, there's another variable. Remember in the beginning I said you'll understand 95% of it. There's another variable I didn't consider because 1, I didn't want to confuse you guys too much, and 2, I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But the variable is there's a point or 2 or 3 differential in your action value depending on the order in which you guys go. So let's say I go first with Sile and the enemy that I'm pitting against goes first or goes 4th. Meaning, so Sile goes, then Asta, then Jing Yuan, and then enemy. There's a point deficit that the enemy will lose depending on the order in which he went. And again, I know that sounds confusing. That's why I didn't even include it in here. Also because it's not as important. It's only like literally a point or 2 that gets either taken away or added to action values, depending on the sequence. So I didn't add that in here, again, because it's fucking confusion. Now let's go ahead and look at the team example here. We got Jing Yuan, Team Yun, Gepard, and Asta. This is a symbolization of who's rocking speed boots and who's not rocking speed boots. For whatever reason, Gepard's not rocking speed boots. I'm just providing an example so you guys could see the impact of a speed boot versus the impact of not having the speed boot. And also just because you might not have a speed boot for every single one of these characters, right? Now the enemy speed is going to be 158, which is a 63 action value. This is everybody's respective action values over here. Now, I want you guys to keep in mind, right now at level 67, all the bosses have 158 speed. Yeah, it's high as hell, huh? I know. And the deeper levels we get into the game, their multiplier increases. In fact, I'll show you guys a clear-cut example here. Give me 1 second. Okay, sorry, I had to screenshot these and put these on here. Here's like just a quick little list of all the enemies you end up facing. Now, if it says complete, that means that they're probably in a simulated universe, and that's their complete version. I think they also end up going in Forgotten Hall too. But basically, you can see Kokolia, Gepard, Branya, Sabrag, or Varag, whatever the hell his name is. All of them have pretty much this literal same exact attack speed boost. Furthermore, all these other ones have pretty similar attack speed boost too, except like a couple of different variants. But at level 64, they have a 1 speed multiplier, 1.1, 1.2, 1.32 at 86 plus. 1.32 is massive. That turns like 144 into like 190 speed. But basically, depending on the level bracket they're in, their speed gets multiplied by a certain degree. So yeah, they have a high amount of speed, which is actually, it's very huge to consider this. And this is why I said it varies so much when you're putting on a speed boot or not, because in certain scenarios, putting on that speed boot is not going to make you attack twice. It's just going to prevent you from getting hit a lot. So just keep that in mind. So yeah, coming back to this, these are all the action values. Now, finally, let's look at the variables, because this is going to be very important as well. The variables, what we got? 13 or so minutes. We ain't doing too bad. I'm trying to like do all this within 20 minutes. I don't want to talk you guys ear off for a goddamn hour. 4-turn sequence occurrences. All right, so we're going to give you a literal example of what's going to happen in 4 turns based off of all the information I just provided, and then these variables. Let's say Asta provides a 40 speed boost to the party for 2 turns. That's literally her ult. Let's say you shield break the enemy on turn 2 and turn 4, and then finally, let's say you freeze the enemy on turn 2, which, by the way, the freeze delay doesn't occur until the next turn, because you freeze them and then the next turn happens, and then they thaw out, and then the delay occurs right then and there. So although we freeze them on turn 2, the effect won't take place until turn 3. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, now that we did that, let's go ahead and go into the sequence. Now, off rip, I need you guys to understand something here. It's going to be a little bit confusing. All right, I'm going to explain all this to you. I know this shit just looks like a bunch of it just looks like a bunch of numbers. I'm going to make it very crystal clear here though. So first and foremost, this is going to be sequence 1, sequence 2, sequence 3, sequence 4. What I mean by sequence is the first time everybody attacks on a turn, it then goes over into the next turn, okay? The other thing I want you to take in mind is obviously the color coded. I do this to help you guys understand what the numbers are. 63E means 63 enemy, 63 action value, and this is the enemy. This is the color that represents the enemy. 71 is Ting Yun. And the red number means that's the differential between the person who's up next to swing versus the enemy's speed or action value. I'm sorry, not speed. 74 is going to be Asta's action value. 79 is going to be Jing Yuan's action value. And finally, 100 is going to be Gepard's action value, which is quite high, but my boy ain't got no speed boots. It's hard out there for a pimp. He got on them goddamn heavy ass Link boots from Zelda Link to the Past. The ones you got to put on to stay low on the water, bro. All right, anyways, man, this is all their respective action values. All right. So on the first turn, again, from least action value to highest action value, the enemy's obviously going to go first, then Ting Yun second, then Asta, then Jing Yuan, then Gepard. Now, what happens next? Oh, by the way, again, the red number is literally the difference between Ting Yuan and the enemy, Asta and the enemy, Jing Yuan and the enemy. So -16 is 63 minus 79. -37 is 100 minus 63. This is a very, very important number to understand. Why? Well, however much an enemy's action value cost, once this number turns into that enemy's action value, that means they can now attack 2 times before you attack once, because they can now do 2 action values that are still going to be lower than your 1 action value. And of course, vice versa. This is going to give you the answer as to when you're going to be able to attack 2 times in 1 turn. This is also going to give you the answer on whether your boot is important to run with speed or attack percent. So let's go ahead and continue on with that in mind. Now, this is turn sequence 2. Remember what I said over here. On turn sequence 2, we break the enemy's shield, which is a 25% action delay. And then we freeze the enemy as well, but that's not going to take place until turn 3. Let's explain what I mean by that. So on turn 2, and finally on turn 2, we pop Asta's burst on turn 1. I tested this in the game too. You have to trust me on this. If you pop Asta's burst on turn 1, it doesn't take effect until turn 2. I know this to be true. I've already tested it. I even put it in my notepad. So if you pop her ult, and go ahead and try it. Go ahead and try that shit. It's not going to apply until turn 2. Anyways, on turn 2, what happens is we get 40 speed boost to all of our party members. So his 100 is going to turn into 71 with the new speed. 10,000 divided by that, we get a 71 action value. So on turn 2, everybody's going to have their turn 1 plus their new turn 2 speed, and that's going to be their action value totaled on turn 2. So for Ting Yun, it's going to be 127, Asta 131. That's because she has a 57 action value on turn 2, 71 action value for Ting Yun, 60 action value for Jing Yuan, and then the enemy got their shield broken, which is a 25% action delay. That's 63 times 1.25. So now it's 63 plus 79. He now has a total action value of 142, which puts him now in 4th place in the turn sequence, whereas on turn 1, he was in 1st place. But see, this is how important action delay is. If you delay somebody's action, they go from being the fastest to the 2nd slowest. Now, finally, my boy here who had 100 speed now has 71, or I keep saying speed, action value. He now has 71 action value. So he was at minus 37, working his way up towards getting the enemy getting attacked 2 attacks before he can get 1 in. Now he's working his way down and hopefully preventing the enemy from attacking 2 times because he has no speed boots on. Finally, these 3, they went from being in the negative to in the positive. They are now ahead of the enemy in speed. Now, remember, Gepard freezes the enemy. So now let's go into turn 3. Asta speed boost lasts 2 turns, so everybody still has her speed boost on turn 3. So now that we take this into consideration, the enemy is frozen, the enemy's turn comes up, she thaws out and gets hit with a 50% delay. That's how broken freeze is. So now freeze can't be, I don't think you can freeze Cocolia, for an example, and this is not Cocolia. This is just X. This is just Bob, okay? But let's say Bob got thawed out, he got 50% delay. Now Bob has a 95 action value from that delay. He was at 63, now he's at 95 on turn 3. So that's gonna turn that into a 237 action value when adding up every single turn that Bob has went. Finally, when we look at the differential now, because they still have their speed boost, these guys are now at 54, 49, and 38. Now, here's the crazy thing. If we go to another turn and things stay the exact same, they're going to be able to attack twice. But here's the problem. We also have to take into consideration skill points. Skill points are very prevalent. Right here, it would appear that you use Ting Yun's skill, then you use Asta's skill and burst, then you use Jing Yuan's skill, then you use Gepard's, no, you didn't use, you did an auto attack with Gepard. So you use 3 skill points and you auto attacked 1 time. You start off with 3 skill points in a battle. So you're carrying over here into this next one and you're gonna have +1 skill point. Ting Yun only has to pop her skill 1 time, and then after 3 turns goes by, she has to pop it again because her skill lasts for 3 turns. So basically what I'm trying to get to, without talking your ear off and going step by step, on this turn, since you utilized everybody's skills up on turn 2, you're now going through it, right? You used Asta and Jing Yuan. These 2 weren't enough to make up for the skill point difference. So you're going into this turn with 0 points, right? So even though you're at a large deficit, you now have to auto attack with everybody to get your skill points back up. So you don't get to break this person's shield until the 4th turn now. So the 4th turn comes up, and now everybody has good skill points. You start popping off again, boom, you break their shield. What happens here? I didn't put this on the screen yet. This is what happens if nobody's shield gets broken and nobody gets speed boost. But on turn 4, likely, if you popped Asta's burst on turn 1, on turn 4, her ult's probably coming right back up. She's gonna pop her burst, everybody's gonna get the speed boost, this shield's gonna get broken again, and now everybody is going to get a massive enhancement. The reason I didn't put it on the screen is because I didn't really have enough room. I didn't want to confuse you guys too much, but I know exactly how the outcome is going to play out. These 2 are going to be able to attack 2 times because they are already very close to attacking 2 times. Remember, when they get the speed boost, their action value becomes 56 and 57. So once they get that 56 and 57 action value for being able to attack the 2nd time, that's going to be lower than this person's action value total, because you're going to you're going to break their shield, which is going to delay their 63 into a 79. Now they're going to be at a 316 action value right here. And once you add in 56 and 57 to these two, they are still going to be lower than his 316, which means they are going to attack twice. Ting Yun and Asta, attack, 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 attack. Now Jing Yuan is only at a 22. So even after the delay and even the speed boost, he's still not going to be able to attack twice on turn 4. So this is what I want to get to, boys. I know I'll try my absolute hardest to explain this shit. I told you it was complex, and that's why I was saying there's a lot more to this shit than y'all think it is, man. But this is what I'm trying to say, and we'll end it off with this. That speed boot that I put on Jing Yuan, that you guys thought you got to put it on Jing Yuan because he'll be able to attack 2 times. He attacks way more times. You put a speed boot on. It's been 4 turns. I still have not attacked twice with Jing Yuan. Even with an Asta with a speed boost, even delaying the enemy's turn, freezing them, I still haven't attacked twice with Jing Yuan with a speed boot. And you know what? If I take the speed boot off of him, we're gonna have 43% additional attack boost, and we're gonna attack the same amount of times. Which means putting a speed boot on my man in this scenario could be viewed as completely useless, except for the fact that you might get to go before the enemy goes with Jing Yuan. But that's it. You're still attacking the same amount of times over the course of a 4 to 5 turn sequence. Now let's say the fight only lasts 7 to 8 sequences. If it takes you 5 sequences to get 1 extra attack in with Jing Yuan, then over the course of 8 sequences, you're only gonna get 1 extra attack in. Now, is that 1 extra attack going to beat a 43% attack boost over the course of 8 sequences? Keep in mind, Jing Yuan is unique. He not only attacks with his skill and his ult, he also has a lightning stand behind him that attacks every round too. So 43% attack is very important to him because his lightning stand's attacking, he's attacking with his skill and his ult. That's 3 different variables where he's popping off. So in this scenario, a speed boot is not worth it. The person just has too much attack speed. Has too much speed. So even if you give them a speed boot, it's not gonna really make much of a difference. Now there are some variables where it does, but my problem is people go around saying run speed boot, like it's a universal size fits all variable that's gonna fix your problems and you're just gonna start attacking. Like you put on this speed boot, bro, you're gonna attack 18 times. Yes, that's how they pitch it to people. And it's just very telling to me. I'm like, the fact that you're saying that like as a universal advice means you don't understand shit about speed and action value. Because if you actually understood it, you would say, it depends. Who are you going up against? What's their speed? What's your team? Do you have a welt on your team that's literally delaying their turn by 30% and slowing them, which is going to allow your player to pop off if you put a speed boot on them? There's so many different variables that applies to this. You cannot tell people don't run a speed boot or run a speed boot until you understand the entire premise of what the fuck is going on. This game is way more complex than you thought. And that was literally the entire premise of my video. Now you want to know what's funny? People say don't run speed boot on Sile because she has enough speed. That is also a dumbass mindset. Again, if you apply the concept I just explained to you, if you take this scenario right here, in fact, if you were to put a speed boot on Sile versus Sile not having a speed boot, she would attack on the 3rd turn. If you take the speed boot off, she's not going to attack on the 3rd turn. She'll attack on probably the 4th or 5th turn, very similar to Jing Yuan. But if you put that extra 25 speed boot on her, it puts her just low enough to be able to attack 2 times every 3 turns. And again, if it's 8 sequences, the fight draws out all the way to 8 sequences. That's 2 extra attacks. And with somebody like Sile, those 2 extra attacks can actually be stronger than a 43% attack boost. Why? Because if they summon ads and she kills the ads, resurgence procs, and that extra attack leads into another extra attack, which leads into another extra attack. So there are some scenarios where speed boot's very important. In fact, people kept saying if they have high speed, don't put speed on them. It's vice versa. If they have high speed, chances are they're going to be able to attack way more times than somebody who has low speed and you're trying to bring them up to attack more times. The people with high speed, the hunt path characters, not only do they have high speed, they have traces and perks that allow you to advance forward That, like, they have so many different things. Like, they have a trace that'll increase your speed by 20%, and then like Dan Hane, he can literally debuff you, the enemy, with his with their speed, slow them down, advance himself forward, and then he's a wind character, and the wind relic also advances you forward. So I'm like, damn, this motherfucker really can pop off. Y'all probably heard that thunder. Case in point, boys. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and be real. I stopped the recording because I heard thunder pop off, and just in case everything shuts off, I had to save this. If I would have had to do this over again, I would have been goddamn livid. We're gonna go ahead and stop right here just in case I have a goddamn power outage, boys. Class session closed. What I'm trying to say here is the variables really matter. Should you run a speed boot? It literally depends. For the most part though, for somebody like Jing Yuan, who attacks with his skill, his ult, and his goddamn lightning count stand, I don't recommend a speed boot in a lot of scenarios, especially if you have Bronya, who can just make him guarantee an attack. And again, if you have Bronya, you want to make sure he attacks faster than Bronya. In that scenario, you might want to put a speed boot on him just to make sure he attacks before Bronya does, so that she can make him go 2 times in 1 turn. So there's so many different things, but to end it, to not talk your ear off, there are too many variables to say universally run attack boost or run speed. And that was hopefully something you learned in this video today. Y'all take care, and I'll catch you on the flip side.